Hello, Pastor Michael Rote here. Continue on with my testimony here. Been a little while since I've done the last video where I talked about the Spanish church. I've covered my testimony from salvation to getting called to preach, to how I met my wife, how the Lord put us together, the Spanish church. Today on this one, again, the reason why I'm doing this is if anybody watches this, I hope and pray it's a blessing to them. But the main purpose for this, for me, doing this is for my kids, my grandkids, my family, kind of archive this. Hopefully, something they can watch or look back on, and just want to leave behind something that they can see down through the years that their dad, their grandpa, that I serve the Lord and love the Lord and put the Lord first in all that I do. So today, what I want to talk about is the Lord using me and leading me and others into starting Glory Bound Baptist Church, and how the Lord moved and blessed in that over the span of 8 years, and then how Glory Bound merged in with New Buffalo Baptist Church in Grover. Glory Bound was started in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, and then we merged after 8 years with New Buffalo Baptist Church in Grover, North Carolina, not too far away from where Glory Bound was, the building that we were using. So let me get into that. So I'd been doing the Spanish church, and I talked about that in the last testimony video that I posted. And I just started feeling like the Lord was tugging at my heart and leading me to start a church from scratch. Just really felt burdened with that. I didn't tell anybody about it. It was something I'd prayed about probably, I guess, for about 6 months or so. And I didn't tell anybody, not even my wife. And just something I felt burdened about, and something I was praying about and seeking the Lord's direction on. And like I said, I didn't tell anybody about it because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't being influenced by anybody. Make sure that nobody would sway me one way or the other. I wanted to do what the Lord would have me to do. And so after about six months or so of praying, I got a phone call, and it was from my brother John, and who is going on home to be with the Lord a couple years ago. My younger brother, and he had called me and said that he had pulled over at a little storefront building, and this little building in Kings Mountain on one side of town, closest to the Gaston County line. Kings Mountain's in Cleveland County, and this building was literally sitting right on the city limit line, just as you exit Gaston County into Cleveland County coming into Kings Mountain. And I'm familiar with the area because I've lived in Kings Mountain all my life. Right at the bottom of the hill was the old AM radio station where I used to preach at on the radio when the Lord first called me to preach. And so very familiar with the area. And I knew what building he was talking about when he called me. And he said, I'm sitting here at this storefront building, and this building literally had been a church or two before. Had been a vitamin shop, a little bookstore, I think. It's been one of them buildings that have been a little bit of everything. And he called me, and he said, I don't know why. He said, but I just felt led to pull over and get the number off of this for rent sign that's out in front of this building, and felt like I needed to call you and give it to you. Now, mind you, I had not said anything to anybody. So I told him, I appreciate it. When I got off of work, I went by there and looked at the building, and sat in the parking lot, looked at the building, and I spent some time praying. And I felt like, okay, now is the time. Now is the time to take this step of faith. Now, mind you, I've at that time, I think I was 28 years old. And, I'd really been serving the Lord, but serving the Lord within the church that I grew up in. And so to do this was going to be a huge step of faith for me. And I was nervous, I was scared, didn't know what I was doing, still don't know what I'm doing. And but I remember calling the man that was over the building, and he told me, he said, well, there's somebody else that's showing interest in the building. He said, but whoever comes up with the money first gets the building, and it was going to be first month's, it was going to be deposit, which would be the equivalent of first month's rent, and then have the first month's rent as well. And I think, remember back on that, I want to say it was going to be $1,200 altogether. I think it was. I think that sounds right. I think it was $600 deposit, $600 month's rent. And man, I thought to myself, man, I ain't got any money, and I still don't have any money. And Lord, this is what you want me to do. We're gonna pursue it. And so I remember I went, talked to my pastor, and resigned my positions at the church that I was in, that I grew up in. Told him what I felt like the Lord was calling me to do, and that I was going to pursue that. That was on a Sunday night after church. I had that conversation with my pastor. Then on the following Wednesday night, he had me stand up before the church and formally resign my positions before the church and let the church know what it was I was doing, that that I was just trying to pursue the Lord, follow Him, do what He's called me to do. And after the service, he had me come down to the front. Folks come by in the church to shake my hand and hug me and let me know they was praying for me. And some of the folks, as they come by, would shake my hand, and there'd be something in their hand. And some of them, it was $20 bill, $100 bill, a check, and things like that. And so I took that with what little bit of money I had saved up, put it all together. That was on Wednesday night. On Thursday, I called the man again to make sure that it was still available, and it was. So on Friday, I talked to my supervisor at work. I asked him if I could get off of work early. Told him what I was doing, and he allowed me to get off of work early. So I left and drove from Charlotte to Kings Mountain, and I went and met the man, and he prorated a month because it was kind of in the middle of the month, so that saved us a little bit of money. So I gave him the deposit, the prorated rent for the month. I had some money left, so I left from there, went to City Hall because it's inside the city limits of Kings Mountain. Went to City Hall to get all the utilities turned on, and when I got there, they said, "Well, what's the name of the church?" And I said, "Well, we don't have a name yet. We're just getting it started." And they said, "Well, for us to be able to turn on the utilities and everything, the church has to have a name." I had a couple ideas on church names, but I remember when I was a kid, there was a play that my grandpa, being my youth leader when I was younger, I had put on a play called The Glory Bound Train, and that just automatically that name come to my mind, and I said Glory Bound Baptist Church. So that was the name of the church, Glory Bound Baptist Church. And I lie to you not, to get to the power, the water, trash pickup, all the utilities for the city, to get that turned on, come out to the exact penny of what I had left. God provided exactly to the penny what we needed to get Glory Bound started, through what little bit I had saved up and through what others, love offering people, had given me on Wednesday and on Thursday. Some people had met up with me and gave me a little bit more on Thursday, and what a blessing it was, and it come right down to the penny. That was on Friday. On Saturday, my family and I, we met up at that building, did a deep clean on that because nobody had been in it for a while, and the yard was a mess. I mean, things were overgrown, so we had some of the ladies in my family inside the building cleaning, and it really needed to be cleaned. And then all of us men, we were outside trimming bushes, cutting grass, hauling off brush, and doing all that all day Saturday. We started, I think it was like 8 o'clock that morning, and we didn't quit till, some of us didn't quit till 9 or 10 o'clock that night. And we were planning on having church, with my family on Sunday morning. And, it just kind of dawned on me, probably about 2 o'clock that afternoon, we don't have any chairs, we don't have any song books, we don't have anything. All we've got is our family, some promises from people that said, if you start the church, we'll come visit the church, we'll be there. So I had my family, I had some promises, And I did have a pulpit that my grandpa had built me, and that was it. We didn't have anything, no songbooks, no chairs, no nothing. And I remember sending out a text to some of my friends, some preachers, some people I knew that had gone to church with before, and told them, I said, just be, if y'all will, please be praying for us. We're getting ready to get started, but we're starting with an empty shell of a building. We don't have any chairs, pews, nothing. We don't have songbooks. We don't have anything. And so just be praying that, the Lord has provided everything so far. We pray that the Lord will continue to provide what we need. And it wasn't long. I got a phone call from a preacher friend of mine. Said, send somebody over to my church. I got some old songbooks that I'll loan out to you that you can use as long as you need them. And then when the Lord provides you something else, then you can give them back to me so we can continue passing them on to others that may need them. And so I sent somebody from a family over there, and they come back with 30 old songbooks, the church hymnals, and to come back with 30 of them, exactly 30. Wasn't long. Another friend of mine called me up and said, hey, I'll be over at your place here in just a little bit with truck and trailer. I got some old wooden straight back chairs that you can use as long as you need to use them. And y'all just, I just want to be a blessing to you. It wasn't long. He showed up with truck and trailer. We unloaded the wooden straight back chairs, and there were exactly 30 of them. Exactly 30 songbooks and exactly 30 chairs. We put everything in the building. We got everything ready to go. We prayed before we left. We left, went and tried to get a good night's sleep. I was nervous and excited and scared and worried all at the same time. And get there, get ready to have our very, very first Sunday morning service. This was in October 2013. And in October 2013, and we had that very first service. And we had 30 songbooks, we had 30 chairs, and we had 30 people. That's exactly how the Lord moved and worked. I mean, exactly those numbers to the penny, what we needed to get everything started. 30 songbooks, 30 chairs, and the very first Sunday morning service, 30 people. My family and some others had promised and said, if you start church, we'll be there. And the Lord moved and blessed in that. Well, in about a year and a half time, let me say this. That was in October 2013. We found out my grandpa had cancer, and it was terminal. And my grandpa had stood up before the church at the beginning of December. So we're a month and a half old at this point. And my grandpa said, "You know what?" He said, "I've seen and done everything I've ever wanted to do in this life. I was in the Air Force, and I've traveled the country. I've seen everything I've wanted to see." He said, "The Lord saved me. The Lord's been good to me. The Lord's blessed me. The Lord's seen my grandson start a church and pastor." And he said, if I should leave this earth soon, he said, if there's only one other thing that I'd like to see, he said, I'd love to be able to see 100 people in this church before I go on home to be with the Lord. Well, the folks in the church, my family, and the few folks we had, the 30 or so we had, got to work, knocking on doors, inviting people, encouraging people. I mean, they went out, we went out, knocking on doors in Kings Mountain, Bessemer City, Gastonia, Shelby, just all over. Now, our folks, when we were, out in public, when we'd go shopping and things like that, was handing out tracts and inviting people to church, and telling them the story too of what my grandpa's wish was. And on the Sunday before Christmas, December 2013, the Sunday before Christmas, is the date that we kind of had set that we're shooting for, target date. So we worked all that month of December. And on that Sunday, we had 105 people show up in that tiny little storefront building. We had it packed slam out. People were standing up against the walls, standing out on the front porch of the church. We had the front doors of the church building open, and people standing outside on the front porch and on the steps and in the parking lot so that they could be there for the service. And the Lord blessed, moved and blessed. We figured it up. We had 52 first-time visitors. I forget how many was saved. I want to say there was like 13 or 14 people saved. I mean, it was what a blessing it was. And in a year and a half time, the church grew from that first initial 30 to running about 60. And that was way more than that little building could hold. And we were still under we were still under the what do you call it, the contract with the man that was renting the building from, and the lease agreement. And we still had about 5 or 6 months left on the lease agreement, and we were packed out. And not only that, we had an issue with like I said, it was an old building. The floor in the sanctuary began to sag so much that the floor separated from the wall in one area, probably about a foot and a half separation. I could look up from where the wall and the floor separated. You could see the ground underneath the building. We referred to it as the trampoline church. Every time that the Lord would move and people would be shouting and praising the Lord, the whole church building would bounce. The floor felt like a trampoline. And so we let the man we rented from, made him aware of it. And he said, well, I'm going to send somebody out to look at it and fix it. And I'm thinking, man, this is not going to be a quick fix. And thank God for Lord giving me a little bit of wisdom and put this thought in my mind. I need to contact somebody, make sure that I've got somebody protecting our interests as well. And again, I was still working a full-time job. I was in Charlotte, and I called a friend of mine who was on code enforcement in the city of Kings Mountain back then. And I called him and I asked him, I said, hey, would you be willing to go by over there and be there when he sends his men over there to look at it, to make sure that it's not going to be just a quick fix, but the problem's taken care of, because I was concerned about the safety of our people. And well, the Lord worked it out to our advantage. They were just going to take and put a bottle jack underneath that section of the floor and jack it up, and try to just put a patch on it. Luckily, my friend that's in code enforcement got there, and he crawled up under the building. All the floor joist in that entire building was rotted. I mean, he said there was all kinds of other damage and things that was done. He said really, when it got right down to it, the building needed to be condemned, and that's how bad a shape that it was. And so the landlord, he contacted me, told me what his plans were. I contacted him. I got back in touch with him and had a conversation with him and told him, that I had a guy from the city there, and he was pretty upset about that. But I was just doing it to protect our church and the interest of the church. And told him we needed to move on. We needed to get out of that building, and he was unwilling to let us out of the lease agreement, but we showed him in the lease agreement where, the floors were supposed to be maintained in proper working order. He had put that in the lease agreement. I think he put that in there, knowing that there was issues with the floor to begin with. But anyway, to make a long story short, he let us out of the lease agreement, but he was going to make us forfeit our deposit, which I didn't think was right, but to keep an argument, keep from bad testimony, we just forfeited the deposit. That was fine, and we moved on. And the Lord provided us another building on the other side of town in Kings Mountain, on Dixon School Road, right off of Interstate 85, and bigger building, $100 cheaper a month, and the Lord blessed us and worked it out. We moved down there, and we spent the next 6.5 years there at that location. We started out, the building actually was a 2,000 square foot building, on the top floor, 2,000 square foot basement. When we first moved into it, we rented 1,400 square feet on the top floor, and a church member of ours had rented a 600 square foot section on the top floor, and had started a little coffee shop in there. And but we had it worked out to where if something happened, the coffee shop didn't work out, that we would have first dibs on renting that 600 square foot section. And I guess about 6 or 8 months into it, we ended up renting the whole 2,000 square foot section on the top floor. Tore out a small room to expand the sanctuary because the church was growing. Used the 600 square foot section as nursery and slash fellowship hall and slash Sunday school class. We made do. And then the Lord worked it out as we continued to grow, that we got the 2,000 square feet basement that was being rented out to somebody else for a monument or engraving business. The landlord there had them move their stuff out and rented it out to us, and we grew, and so we was able to start children's church or youth church. Was able to start a couple Sunday school classes with having extra space, and we continued to grow. And we had a church member that allowed us to use I want to say it was maybe a 18 by 24 or 30 building that they had. They were moving, didn't have a place to put it at the time, and allowed the church to use it as long as we needed to. And so we moved that down there to the property and turned it into fellowship hall / Sunday school class, and we just began to really grow there. We got to the point where we were averaging on Sunday mornings around 80 people. We had one Sunday morning had 112 church. Lord really moved and blessed there at that location. And like I said, we were Glory Bound was for 8 years before we merged at New Buffalo. Where Glory Bound was located at, again, was in a rented building. It was rented property. And, you know, right across the bridge, we were on one side of the bridge. And on the other side of the bridge, the Catawba Indians had some land that they had reserved to build a casino. And the last thing we wanted was to be right next door, which literally would be next door to a casino. And people would ask us, we knew that if and when the casino came, that property values in the area right around it would go up, and a lot land and stuff would be sold because businesses would want to move in closer to it. And so we knew that, if and when that came, that chances were pretty good that, that the rented property we had would get sold. And so people would ask us all the time, well, what are y'all going to do when that casino comes? What are you going to do? And kept saying, well, where the Lord guides, He provides. And so we ain't going to worry about it. We're just going to keep doing what the Lord's called us to do. And we're going to trust the Lord. Well, the casino came. Our church and many other Christians and churches in the area went to City Hall for the town hall meetings. I remember the town hall meeting I went to that I got a chance to speak in. I think there was over 100 people that got their 2 or 3 minutes to speak. And all of us were opposed to the casino except for one that stood up and spoke. When I say 100 spoke, it wasn't 100. There was over 100 people in attendance in that little City Hall. I forget how many spoke. There were several that spoke. But there was only one that was for it. The rest of us were all against it. But of course, it doesn't really matter what we say. Things are gonna happen. If it's gonna happen, the government wants it to happen. It's gonna happen. And so anyway, make a long story short, the casino, they came and started breaking ground for the casino. And people ask us, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" We're just gonna keep trusting the Lord. And wasn't long. The pastor at New Buffalo reached out to me, and we got acquainted with one another. We started fellowshipping with one another, and ended up merging the two churches. We brought everybody from Glory Bound down to New Buffalo, moved out of that rented building, and moved in at New Buffalo there with the folks that was there, and then we remained there from September 2020 until March of this year, 2023, the end of March 2023 this year. And so 2.5 years we were there. So, 10 and a half years total for Glory Bound and merging in with New Buffalo altogether, 10 and a half years, 8 with Glory Bound, 2.5 years at New Buffalo. And I thank the Lord for allowing me and using me to start Glory Bound. I thank the Lord for how He moved and blessed all the souls that were saved and lives that were changed, and young men that have been called to preach, and my family growing, and it's been a blessing. And at New Buffalo, the 2.5 years there, the Lord moved and blessed in that. But I'm at a place now in my life where the Lord has had me step out by faith again, which is always a hard thing to do. I love the Lord, I trust the Lord, and I want to follow Him, but still the flesh side of me, the man side of me, the human worries, but I've taken that step of faith and resigned my position there at New Buffalo, pursuing what the Lord would have me do next. I've preached a couple trial sermons at another church in Gastonia, which is back in Gaston County, not too far from where I live. I've been preaching a few trial sermons there. Don't know if they're listening. They've got a few other preachers that they're trying out. I don't know if I'll end up there or not. If that's the Lord's will, then so be it. I've had another church reach out to me and offer me position at their church, youth pastor slash assistant pastor, and so I'm praying about it and seeking the Lord. And that's the great thing about the Christian life. It's a very exciting thing. When you follow the Lord, you serve the Lord. The Lord places you where He wants you, and He uses you how He wants to use you. And that's all I ever wanted to be, is a servant for the Lord and to follow Him. And so this is my testimony up to this date, up to now in April 2023. I got saved in 1989. The Lord called me to preach in 1999. I met my wife, started the Spanish church, did that for 10 years, started Glory Bound, did that for 8 years, and merged at New Buffalo for the last 2.5 years. So over half of my life has been serving the Lord. I've been in a position of pastor for 20 years, and I'm still young. I'm not quite 40 yet. Next month I'll turn 39. And so I've been preaching over half my life, pastoring over half my life, and I don't have any regrets. I thank God for what He's done for me, what He's called me to do, and I'm excited about this next chapter in my life, what the Lord's got in store, whether it be pastoring that church in Gastonia, pastoring somewhere else, or taking that position of assistant pastor slash youth pastor at another church. Doesn't matter to me. Whatever the Lord's will is, that's what I want to do. And so I thank God for being good to me and blessing me and using me the way that He has. And so this is my testimony up to this point. And hopefully, Lord willing, I'll maybe soon be able to make another video of my testimony and to be able to update my family, update you on exactly where the Lord puts me and where I begin to serve Him next. So I do covet your prayers. Pray for me and pray for God's will to be done in my life. And pray that souls will be saved and lives will be changed and that God can use me for His glory. God bless you. I love you. Thank you.